Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Body counter sense after Carter holds Lily hostage with a gun. According to the Young and the Restless spoiler preview video for the week of July 28 to August 1st, Carter will kidnap Lily Winters with a gun before the number of dead in Nice rises. Once Carter confesses to killing Damian Kane, he'll realize Chance Chancellor and Victor Newman have been listening nearby. Carter will no doubt accuse Kane Ashby of setting a trap and will ultimately act like Kane's ungrateful for everything he's done for him. Y&R's weekly promo kicks off with Carter pulling a gun on Lily as Kane and Chance panic. Kane then warns Carter that he's only going to make it worse for himself, but Carter disagrees. "How could I make it worse? It was all for you. And now you wanna lock me up?" In the preview video, Carter declares, "I'll find my way out of here." There'll be at least one more dead character by the end of all this, so will Carter get shot in a struggle? Kane will reassure her that she did the right thing because Amanda Sinclair will involve the authorities. Amanda will mention that the bodies will be taken to the coroner's office and that the case is pretty much closed, so she'll think Kane is in the clear. Am I? In the weekly preview video, Kane asks. It's obvious that Kane will deal with some guilt over this whole situation. Carter was Kane's employee, so he'll feel responsible for Damian's grim fate and will eventually fling everything off his desk in a fit of rage. On the train later, Nicky Newman will sit with Nick Newman as he continues to face pain over his recent injury. You can bet Nicky will fume over the news that the house arrest chaos put Nick's life at stake. When cell service is suddenly restored to all of their phones, Victor, Sharon Newman, and Sally Spectra will also be there. Victor will have the impression that Kane knows he is lost because Sharon will be wondering why this is happening now. Victor will add that they are going to get the hell out of there, so the France storyline is definitely winding down. According to the Young and the Restless spoilers, when Kane returns to GC with the others, there will be more drama to deal with. Keep an eye out for updates on the chaos. Carter's hostage, estate escape, Kane's new problem. The Young and the Restless spoilers reveal a preview clip has been released for the week of July 28, 2025. The attendees of the party will resume service and plan to Zoom immediately. Meanwhile, Amanda Sinclair says the bodies need to be transported to the coroner's office. Then, the lawyer assures Kane Ashby that he's cleared, but is not so sure about that. Keep reading and let's talk about what is coming up in the CBS soap opera. Carter's hostage. Let's begin with the preview clip's very beginning. Carter pulls out a gun and takes Lily Winters hostage. As Lily screams, "What's happening?" Kane and Chance Chancellor try to stop Carter. The detective tries to reason with the villain, but it doesn't do much good. Then, Kane tries to work his magic on Carter by telling him he's just making things worse for himself. Carter responds, "How could things be worse?" At that point, "I did it all for you and now you wanna lock me up. I'll find my way out of here." Amanda Sinclair's bold move. Over in Kane's office, he sits with a serious and troubled look on his face. Amanda comes in, and Kane assures her that she made the right decision. The lawyer reports that they are just wrapping up, and the bodies need to be taken to the coroner's office. That's right, bodies as in plural. Amanda adds that the case is pretty much closed, and Kane is in the clear. However, Kane looks at Amanda and says doubtfully, "Am I?" The Great Escape from Home. The Young and the Restless spoilers for next week reveal that Nicky Newman sits next to a wincing Nick Newman. Victor Newman, Sally Spectra, and Sharon Newman are in the train with them. Suddenly, a phone can be heard. It's Victor's, so he grabs it to look at it. As Sharon and Sally wonder what's going on, they discover everyone has service. Sharon wants to know why now, but Victor suggests they get the hell out of there pronto. Kane Ashby's new problem. There is also a scene that shows Kane alone in his office. Suddenly, he takes his arm and in one giant sweep, knocks everything to the floor. Kane is full of rage, but what is his next move? Can Nick outsmart his captors? Next on The Young and the Restless. While under lock and key, Sharon and Nick tried to figure out why Kane would want to frame him for Damian's murder, and why he's under house arrest. Kane may be threatened by Nick. Why so, if so? Michael and Lauren couldn't figure it out, and Victor went straight to yelling and threats. Nick makes a move of his own and tries to escape, but it all goes terribly wrong. Unless that's what Kane intended all along. A knife in the hedge maze. Kane brought Chance to France specifically because he knew someone would try to murder him. Kane is certain that the knife was meant for Damien, even though he has passed away. He had his goon arrest and lock up Nick. Victor is most displeased about this. So he teams up with Chance to do some detective work on his own. And by detective work, Victor means going with the old favorite. The butler did it. That guy, the one with the glasses, the one who refuses to bend a knee to Victor. Is he the housekeeper? Well, even if he isn't, that doesn't matter. He still looks all shifty. Victor has decided he's guilty. Therefore, let Nick go, and let's continue. You got that? You're F.I.'d. Jack tried to give Billy the benefit of the doubt. But he has to face facts. His brother is a screw-up, and always will be. Jack is tired of throwing good money after bad. He's cutting Billy off. Start throwing tantrums now. Will Cole's death pave the way for Kane and Victoria to try again on? Hold on to your martinis because Genoa City might be gearing up for one fiery shake-up. With Cole's tragic death leaving Victoria single once again, we can't help but wonder if the young and the restless if getting up to open the door for her and Kane to revisit their unfinished business. A gone love story. Remember when Kane and Victoria shared that sizzling kiss back in the day? It was the spark that contributed to blowing up Kane and Lily's marriage and sent Lily running from town after prison. And, not too long after, Kane went packing, too. Now that he's back with billionaire swagger and no Lily to run back to, the possibilities feel endless. Lily's made it crystal clear that she's moved on and isn't looking back. Not even with Damien's death is softening her to Kane's rough edges. In fact, she wants less to do with him now than ever. Meanwhile, Kane seemingly has been inching closer to Amanda. But come on, is there really fire there, or just smoke? Give us fire. Victoria doesn't just need a man, she needs a powerhouse. A partner who understands her corporate drive and isn't intimidated by her cutthroat nature. Kane is no longer the con artist who once congregated in Genoa City. He's reinvented himself as a force to be reckoned with. And he might be exactly the type of man Victoria has been waiting for. Let's not kid ourselves, though. If Kane and Victoria go there, the fallout could be delicious. The Newmans won't exactly roll out the red carpet for Kane, and there's bound to be some explosive reactions from Genoa City's elite. But could that resistance actually streak? Carter stormed into Chancellor Winters, drenched in madness, sweat beading at his brow, wielding a cold, gleaming pistol that would soon tip the scales of life and death, and Lily Winters stood frozen behind her desk, unaware her day was about to spiral into a nightmare beyond imagination. Her hands trembled as Carter shouted for everyone else to get out. Now! And they did, screaming, stumbling over chairs. Please. Just put the gun down. We can talk about this. But he wasn't listening, not really, his eyes bloodshot and darting to the windows like he expected someone to come crashing through any moment. And outside, chaos reigned. Devon on the phone with Chance, Billy trying to kick in the door, Amanda screaming for someone to call Victor. Because if anyone knew how to handle a hostage situation, it was him. And inside the office, time was melting, seconds stretching into hours as Carter's voice rose and fell like a stormy tide. And then, bang, a warning shot, inches from Lily's head, embedding itself in the glass partition, and she screamed, ducking, heart hammering against her ribs, and still he kept ranting, about lies and betrayal and how he didn't come this far to be thrown away like garbage. And that's when Nick Newman arrived, bruised, still limping from his last encounter with Carter but burning with fury and protective instinct, shouting through the door that Carter needed to back off and let Lily go, but Carter only laughed, a chilling, hollow sound that echoed down the halls, and whispered, "You're too late again, Nick." Just like always. And outside, Sharon had arrived too, pushing past the yellow police tape, refusing to be sidelined as history threatened to repeat itself. And inside, Lily's patience was unraveling, her mind spinning through every escape plan she'd ever seen in the movies, calculating angles, furniture distances, distraction tactics. But before she could act, Carter pulled her by the wrist, dragged her to the window, and screamed at the crowd below. "You want to save her? Come and get her." And that's when Kane Ashby appeared, stepping through the hallway with a look that could freeze hell over, and he called out, "Carter, this ends now. I'm not letting you take her from me." And Carter's laugh turned to a growl, the gun swinging toward Kane now, but Lily used that moment, one flicker of distraction, to elbow Carter in the ribs, a clean, perfect blow, and the gun fell, clatter. And suddenly chaos erupted as everyone moved at once, Billy crashing in through the other door, Devon diving to protect Lily, Nick charging Carter as fists flew, the room erupting into a war zone. And somehow in the chaos, another gun appeared, Amanda would later testify it was Carter's backup weapon, and another shot rang out, bang, and someone screamed, and when the smoke cleared, blood pooled across the mahogany floor as Carter lay motionless, his eyes wide open in shock and death, and nearby, Nick was clutching his side, blood pouring from a fresh wound. But he was alive, and Lily was in tears, cradling him, whispering apologies and prayers, while outside the body count rose. One of the security guards had been shot trying to breach the building. Another EMT trampled in the panic. And as the sirens wailed louder and louder, the truth settled over everyone like ash after fire. Carter was dead, 2 innocent lives were lost in the crossfire. And the scars would never fully fade, not from Lily, not from Nick, not from Kane who finally admitted in the hospital hallway that he had seen this coming and done nothing, and not from Victor who, despite arriving too late, swore this would never happen again on his watch. And as Genoa City tried to return to normal, whispers spread of who might have truly pushed Carter over the edge, of secrets still buried in Chancellor Winter's files, of enemies in high places who benefited from Carter's silence, and Lily, though free, could never walk into her office again without hearing the echo of gunfire. And Nick, recovering with a bullet scar near his heart, took the experience as a sign. He needed to be there for his family, for Sharon, for Faith, for Christian, because life could be ripped away at any second. And as the summer sun rose over a shaken city, headlines screamed, hostage horror, Carter dead, 3 wounded, Lily survives nightmare ordeal. But in the shadows of power and revenge, someone else was already plotting the next move, because Carter might be dead, but his secrets were not buried with him. It all began on a night soaked in shadows and secrets, when the Abbott estate, normally a fortress of polished charm and guarded gates, became the epicenter of Carter's most dangerous gamble yet. With Lily Winters trembling under the cold weight of a gun pressed to her temple, Carter's voice cut through the silence like a whip, barking commands and dragging her deeper into the estate's labyrinthine halls. Sweat drenched Lily's brow as she stumbled forward, silently cursing every decision that led her here, while outside the estate, Kane Ashby skidded his car to a halt, heart pounding, eyes wild with panic, unaware that the woman he once loved had become a pawn in a deranged man's unraveling plot for power, revenge, and escape. Inside, Carter knew time was short. Nick Newman had escaped his grasp, Sharon was alive and talking to Victor, and now the walls were quite literally closing in, but his backup plan was in motion, and Lily was the key. As alarms blared and spotlights sliced through the thick fog blanketing the sprawling property, Carter yanked open a trapdoor concealed behind a grandfather clock and dragged Lily down a hidden tunnel built decades ago during the Abbott family's Prohibition-era heyday, a fact he'd discovered through stolen blueprints and years of plotting. Beneath them, the estate's underbelly twisted through darkness and decay, echoing with Lily's whispered pleas and Carter's harsh breathing, until they emerged behind a crumbling stone wall miles from the estate, into the woods where a rusted van waited, its engine idling and interior lined with weapons, cash, and forged documents that bore Carter's new identity. But even as they sped off into the night, Carter's escape was anything but clean, unknown to him. A small tracking chip embedded in Lily's bracelet had activated, sending signals directly to Victor's private security team, who were already triangulating their location. Abby's shaken voice explained what had just happened, her own guilt tearing at her after having unknowingly let Carter in under the guise of an estate maintenance contractor sent by the city, as Kane burst through the estate's front doors, fury replacing fear, barking Lily's name in desperation. Kane felt suffocated by guilt as the gravity of the situation hit him like a tidal wave. He had spent the previous week looking for a different lead, distracted by Amanda's vague warnings and Phyllis' reckless accusations, while the real threat had slithered right past them all. Now, Carter was gone with Lily, Victor was calling in every favor he had in the federal government, and Kane, driven by a mix of love, guilt, and unrelenting anger, found himself racing against the clock. But what none of them knew, what even Carter himself didn't realize, was that Lily had slipped a burner phone from the back pocket of Carter's emergency duffel, and though she couldn't risk calling, she managed to leave a coded voicemail for Devon, using a phrase only he would understand. "Tell Neil the lilies need water." Back in Genoa City, Devon froze as he replayed the voicemail, eyes widening, the hairs on his neck rising. Lily was alive, and she had just given them her location. As Victor assembled a tactical team, Kane took off solo, rage fueling every turn of the wheel, haunted by memories of his and Lily's better days and the cold truth that his choices had pushed her into Carter's crosshairs. But Kane's obsession with redemption was about to cost him dearly, for while Carter was on the run with Lily, another threat was emerging from the shadows, someone from Kane's past who had returned to collect on an old, bloody debt, and who viewed Lily's capture not as a tragedy but as leverage. This man, known only as Damien Cross, had once been Kane's partner in a covert smuggling operation that went south in the Australian outback. Left for dead by Kane, Damien had survived, rebuilt, and now wanted everything Kane valued: his freedom, his fortune, and the woman he loved. Damien watched from a distance as his own team set up a trap and intercepted Kane's route as Carter's van raced toward the abandoned airstrip and Kane fought his way through rural backroads that had been flooded by the storm. What started out as a hostage situation was turning into an old war. Lengthen their bond. Tell Neil the lilies need water. Back in Genoa City, Devon froze as he replayed the voicemail, eyes widening, the hairs on his neck rising. Lily was alive, and she had just given them her location. Kane took off on his own as Victor put together a tactical team, fueled by rage at every turn, haunted by the good times he and Lily had together and the stark reality that his choices had put her in Carter's sights. But Kane's obsession with redemption was about to cost him dearly, for while Carter was on the run with Lily, another threat was emerging from the shadows, someone from Kane's past who had returned to collect on an old, bloody debt, and who viewed Lily's capture not as a tragedy but as leverage. This man, known only as Damien Cross, had once been Kane's partner in a covert smuggling operation that went south in the Australian outback. Left for dead by Kane, Damien had survived, rebuilt, and now wanted everything Kane valued: his freedom, his fortune, and the woman he loved. As Carter's van sped toward the abandoned airstrip, and Kane fought his way through rural backroads flooded by the storm, Damien watched from a distance, his own team intercepting Kane's route and setting up a trap. What started as a hostage crisis was spiraling into a war of old grudges, where every move brought death closer. Back in the van, Lily saw Carter growing increasingly paranoid, talking to himself, glancing at mirrors, snapping at shadows, as if even he knew his end was approaching. Lily lunged, sending the van plunging into a ditch as Carter was distracted and spiraling out of control at that very moment. Sirens erupted in the distance. Smoke filled the air. Gunfire sparked across the tree line. Lily fled into the night. Can Nick outsmart his captors? Nick Newman had always been a man of action, the kind of guy who could go from boardroom brawls at Newman Enterprises to back-alley confrontations without breaking a sweat. But nothing could have prepared him for the nightmare he now found himself in. Shackled in a dark, mildew-ridden basement with nothing but his instincts and willpower to guide him, Nick was being held captive by Carter, a man whose motives had grown darker by the day, whose vendetta against the Newman family had reached terrifying new heights. The air was thick with the stench of gasoline and damp concrete, and somewhere above, muffled voices plotted his fate. However, Nick was not going to fold over and accept it. No, he was calculating, measuring every sound, every footstep, every flicker of light beneath the door. Could he outsmart them? When the clock was ticking and the odds were stacked against him, could he play the long game? It started with the faint hum of a generator, which told him one thing: the place was off-grid. As a result, he was unable to use SOS signals or access surveillance. It appeared that he was all by himself. But as Carter's men grew comfortable in their routine, so did Nick grow more attuned to the gaps in their operation. A guard change every 6 hours. One captor who always forgot to lock the second padlock. A small, hairline crack in the concrete near the window, no bigger than his thumbprint, but enough to catch a breeze. Additionally, the breeze informed Nick that the window led outside. His brain raced faster than his heartbeat. He had to bide his time, lull them into complacency. Every time Carter stormed in, ranting about Victor, about vengeance, about how the Newmans needed to fall, Nick would nod, grimace, play broken. And all the while, he was listening, learning, plotting. Back at Newman Tower, Sharon, Victoria, and Adam were spinning into panic mode. No one had heard from Nick in days. His phone was off, his credit cards untouched. Sharon had a feeling in her gut, the kind of intuition honed from years of danger and disasters, that Nick wasn't just missing, He was being silenced. And when a scrap of Nick's torn shirt appeared in the alley behind crimson lights with blood on it, the family knew this was war. But Victor, the old lion, had seen too many traps to charge in headfirst. He sent Michael Baldwin on the quiet to follow the money trail. What he discovered chilled them all. A dummy account tied to Carter, long believed to be dead, was active again and funding something big. Meanwhile, Nick was already staging his own silent rebellion. He started with psychological warfare. He whispered nonsense in his sleep to make them think he was losing his mind. He played with the light switch chain above his head to make them think he was trying to hang himself, only to beg for water the next minute. One guard, a nervous kid named Riley, began to doubt whether keeping Nick alive was worth it. "He's losing it, man," he told Carter. "What if he dies on us?" But Carter was unmoved. "Let him rot," he said. "His death will send a message." But that was exactly what Nick needed. The more Carter distanced himself, the more careless the guards became. One night, Riley dozed off at the top of the stairs. Nick, whose hands were zip-tied but not gagged, was able to tip his food tray onto the floor and swivel the sharp edge of the metal toward his bindings. It took hours, skin peeling, wrists bleeding, but eventually, he cut himself free. He didn't run. Not yet. First, he waited until Carter arrived in person, alone, ranting again about revenge. That was when Nick struck. He slammed Carter into the wall with the force of every punch he hadn't thrown over the past week, stole his burner phone, and sent one message: "I'm alive. Basement. Warehouse 42. He didn't sign it. He didn't have to. The phone battery died the second the message went out. Nick tied Carter up with his own zip ties and stuffed his sock in his mouth for good measure. He barricaded the door and waited. What he didn't know was that Sharon had already rallied Chance Chancellor, and Victor had arranged for a private security team to comb every warehouse in a 50-mile radius. When that message came in, they moved in with precision, and found Nick, blooded, bruised, but alive. Carter, however, was gone. His guards had freed him just minutes before the rescue. But they left behind a chilling note pinned to the basement door. This was just round one. Nick may have escaped, but the game was far from over. As he limped into the arms of his family, holding Sharon like a man who'd seen death and spit in its face, he knew the war had only begun. Outsmarting his captors was just the first step. Now, he had to turn the tables, and make sure they'd never get another chance to come after him or the people he loved. Nick Newman was prepared to finish what Carter had started, as the hunter had become the hunted.